It is a brand new episode of Flyers Daily on the eve of the final game of the regular season. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Boy, we've done a lot of these this season. It's hard to believe we're down to the final week. It is a Monday with Meltzer. Joining us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, can you believe that we're on the eve of the final game, game 82?
No, I really can. You know, in a lot of ways, the season has flown by. Particularly, so many recent seasons have felt endless, absolutely endless. And you know, I feel like I feel like we're just mid-season. We were just having our look at the second half of the season, and here we are, one game to go, and a lot riding on it. So I guess that's why it feels like it's gone fast because of
yeah.
Bill,
real quick before we get to the scenarios and what it means that they're playing game 82, and it may mean the world, it may mean extending your season. But what does it mean to the NHL to have the Flyers back on this, front page, if you will? Last couple of years, they weren't on the front page. They were playing it out. It was, any kind of notoriety tended to be negative notoriety. This year, there's been all kinds of drama and all kinds of positive publicity. Obviously the Carter Hart situation is not a positive publicity thing, but the Flyers are back on the front page of the NHL. They mean more than they've meant the last couple of years, and that's a good thing for the franchise, but it's also a good thing for the league.
No question. The Flyers are one of those teams that not just brings gate, because Flyers fans travel well too, but just in terms of storylines and listen, they're going to be a lot of places where the Flyers are forever going to be the most hated villains coming into town, but which is fine. I think that I think that that's what builds intrigue and drama. You have to have your villains too, and the Flyers, the Flyers, even 80s, even the 90s, they embraced it. They didn't care what anybody else thought, right?
Yeah.
And I think that while I think part of this whole process is reconnecting with your own fans, but also adopting kind of this mentality of we don't care what anybody else thinks about us, right? And I think that if you're winning, at least that resonates, that creates interest and drama, and that's a good thing for hockey, I think, for sure.
I remember not this season, but the past season when the Ranger fans took over the building, and the reaction of Flyer fans when it happened, and it just made me think how many times the Flyers have gone into a building and the home fan base has had that reaction because, just even places like Colorado or they'll go in and they'll take over a building. That's what Philadelphia fans do. Bill, we're down to scenarios now. Flyers lost their ability to control their own destiny with the 8-game winless skid. But somehow, and I don't know how, and I've gone back and watched, the Ranger game and a lot of the Devil game over again, and I don't know how they swung their play from the way it was in that 8-game winless skid, in particular the last couple games, Columbus and Montreal, and you look at even the Chicago game I hated.
Yeah.
How they swung their play to do what they did on Thursday against the Rangers, and then to be able to win a 1-0 game, as fragile as I thought they were, to win a 1-0 game that meant everything.
No, for sure. And I've been puzzling over that myself. I have a theory that doesn't cover all of it, but it covers, I think, a piece of it, right? I think if you go into that Rangers game and you look at some of those other games during that stretch, what happened? They would fall behind early.
Yeah.
Right. And then quite often a second goal would follow shortly after that. And now you're down 2. All the negative body language, all that stuff starts to creep in especially because it's been a while since they'd won before the real bottoming out. The real bottoming out was the Chicago, to a degree that first game in Montreal, the 2. But that one they really came on in the final 25 minutes and had a couple goals disallowed, and they made the push that you thought they would make. They just weren't able to pull it out. The Chicago game was, to me, really where the downfall started.
Yeah.
And then even the game in Buffalo, it wasn't an awful game by the Flyers, but it was another game where they fell behind, had to chase the game, you know, and then just it absolutely bottomed out. Obviously in the Columbus, especially in the second Montreal game, the combination of those two. But what they all had in common is you find yourself chasing the game early, and then all the structure falls apart. Everybody's trying to play individually, trying to force plays that aren't there. What happened in the Rangers game is they were able to take an early lead. That certainly helped, but play from even, you know.
Yeah.
And then you get to the second period. Hey, you know, like, and you build it over the course of the game to that dominant closeout in the third. Same thing. I thought in the Devils game, I thought the Flyers got off to a little bit of a tentative start in that one, and they were able to kind of get over the hump a little bit there, you know, and then start to play their game a little bit. So not having to chase a game, getting behind early, I think that was a big piece of it. And then you get to your game and you roll.
I think the common denominator in a lot of those games where they gave up a goal early or didn't score the first goal and sagged, it was a lot of times it was the result of a failed power play that sank them, you know, mentally.
I mean, but that happened on Saturday too.
Yeah,
a 5-on-3 that could not have gone worse.
Yeah, it was
right.
Hideous.
It was just a terrible 2-man advantage, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I was worried. I was worried it was going to kill all momentum, and there you go, because it looked like several of those other games, and that was a piece of it too, right? A quick start, actually, like that first Montreal game, quick start, power play is a momentum killer. Then you give up a goal, and then it rolls straight downhill from there. So that was a piece of it. This time they were able to you know, as bad as that 5-on-3 was, okay, well, it's still nothing, and just set it aside and keep going, which is the mentality you have to have. So a lot of it's mental too.
Yeah, and hockey's a funny game because, you know, if I would have said that Sam Ersson against the Rangers and the Devils in the next two games was going to give up a total of 1 goal, you would have had me committed because there was no way you could see that. But, Bill, the structure has been much better. You see 4 goals against the Rangers off transition. The goal against the Devils is a transition goal as well, in all honesty, even though it's a shorthanded goal. But they're playing fast again. All the earmarks of the things they did well and had success with returned for at least those 2 games. I don't know if it's going to be there come tomorrow night. I don't. Because as fleeting as it left the last time and as it returned, it could not be there Tuesday when they really need it.
No, for sure. And this is going to be another one where, you know, you have to if you have to weather a storm early, you have to do whatever. Just keep.
Got to meet the moment in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Be in the moment and stay there, right? And that's really so big in these critical games. And if you know, I thought it was interesting where John Turturro was talking about, you know, people might say these are our playoffs, but it still is not playoff hockey.
Yeah.
That's where every shift, every inch of ice, you have to, you know, every second of the game takes on a whole other level of intensity. You know, even, I mean, I think that obviously with your season, the regular season line, but there's just this whole electric atmosphere to a playoff game. Every second, every shift. I thought the Flyers came pretty close to that, though, particularly in the Rangers game.
Yeah,
that closeout in the third period is as good as you'll ever see. You know?
Yeah,
holding Panarin and company to 2 shots on goal in the third period. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I think that in terms of the structure, which obviously they need to carry through, to me, guys staying above the puck, keeping their shift short so that you don't end up with tired players out on the ice. And, of course, part of that, too, is being as clean as you can possibly be with the puck. Foul clears, needless icings. You know, they really curtailed a lot of that, so they were able to roll their lines and keep getting fresh troops out so you can keep that attention to detail rolling from shift to shift. Obviously, that has to carry through another game.
Yeah, no doubt. You and I were speaking about that during the first period of the Devils game, remarking just how every shift, if you had a chance to up, back, and off, and to make, you know, pump a puck deep and make them have to go 200 feet, they were doing that. And that's really, at this time of year, that's really important. And I agree with you what Tort said, you know, that you can call this the playoffs because it's got such consequence to it, but the intensity level of the playoffs is such a different level. I mean, you get the DMs every year and emails from people. If the Flyers aren't in it, they're so far away. Look at what these teams are doing. Well, every team says that unless they're in it. And then they go to that level because you just don't. It looks like a different freaking sport in the first round of the playoffs. You're like, what is this? It's bananas.
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes we're in the playoffs too. It can look like a team is getting dominated. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, they find a way and they pull one out in overtime. If you remember back in the series, so I'll use Torts as an example here. When the year that Columbus swept Tampa Bay in the first round,
and down 3-0 in that game,
they were getting just battered. I mean, they almost ran Blue Jackets off the ice, and they came back and they won in overtime. And for whatever, it had a deflating effect on Tampa Bay. You just don't know.
They got punched back for the first time.
Yeah, you don't know what complexion, what person. Every series takes on its own personality, and you can look at a million things on paper. And then it often ends up being totally different. It really depends on how, till somebody loses on home ice. The obviously the odd number games are the most critical ones to win. But it just you don't know how a series is going to end up looking. Even go back to like the 2018 Flyers where they did not. That was a winnable series against Pittsburgh.
Yep.
The Flyers did not play well at all that series, and their goaltending was probably in worse shape than, or at least comparable to how the Flyers were looking down the stretch where they had 2 injured goalies and no faith in the third one.
Yeah.
And so they ended up going with their injured goalies that just forced themselves to play in that series. But they went into the third period of Game 6 tied. Mm-hmm. You win a period, all of a sudden you're playing Game 7. Do you belong in Game 7? I guess you do because they would have, because they were there. So it's just it's such a fascinating thing, and it's why hockey's so unpredictable and so fun, honestly.
Yeah. Before we get to the playoffs, Bill, though, it is Game 82 tomorrow night. Yeah. One of the wins of this season, no matter what, and whether they frittered away a playoff spot, all said and done, and they don't get the help that they need from other teams, but the fact that Game 82 means what it means is progress.
Oh, no question. Which doesn't mean you can rest on your laurels. Yep. Whether they get in or they don't get in, or if they win and the other games don't play out how they, you can, okay, well, we're there, we'll get there. You still have to keep improving. Understand that there are steps to where you can, I don't think you never take for granted, but where you can comfortably feel like we're a playoff team, and now we're working towards being a contender who can come out of the East through 3 series. There's a ways to go, but they've shown kind of a way that they have to play.
Yeah,
and you want to add some more talent into that mix, but the basic way of playing. They've done it. They've done it most of the season. As long as you can, essentially make that your identity and adhere to it, whether John Tortorella is your coach or in a couple of years from now somebody else is the coach, it's something that you can build from. And this year was definitely progress. There were too many games last season that were non-competitive where you get down, or even if you were ahead and started to face some adversity, it would just seem to fall apart. And it's easy sometimes to look at the here and now because that 8-game winless streak was painful.
Yeah.
And really a lot of ugly games in there against teams that you ought to beat. They didn't even come close in a lot of those games. But when you look at the bigger picture of how the team has developed over the season, this is definitely a significant forward step, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I think you have more defined evaluation in more meaningful games, which refines you knowing what you need. Like you can say, everybody says, "Oh, they need more talent. They need high-end talent." Okay, like no crap, but where do you need that talent? Yeah. At what level do you need that talent? You got to put guys in super stressful situations to see how they react, so you can it's not just about talent and acquiring talent. That has to fit, and it also has to have the right character and competitiveness, all of those things. And I think that's part of 82 games that have meant what they meant as well. Can you explain the kind of resurgence of Couturier's play of late? Because Billy looks a lot better. He looks a lot like Couturier from the beginning of the season, and the minutes are being allocated as such as well. And I don't think it's just as simple as saying, well, he's getting more minutes and he's playing. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think he's playing better, and he's got more minutes as a result.
Yeah, and is knocking on the door of scoring again.
Oh God, did he almost have one in the first?
He sure did. He said a couple of those in recent games.
Yeah.
Obviously, game 82 would be the perfect time to get that. Game 82 would be the perfect time for Owen Tippett to get 30 goals this season. And go on down the line, right? But Couturier's resurgence has been critical. It's enabled them to somewhat reduce Scott Lawton's minutes. I think, and also, that way he's in penalty killing situations, and and you're not overtaxing him, right? So Couturier's shown that he can handle more, and he's not playing 20 minutes a night like he was in the first half, but but inching back towards that way. And if you need him 20 minutes on Tuesday, then you take him by 20 minutes, whatever it takes. It's truly whoever's going is who needs to play on that night.
Yeah.
So.
Bill, I know you wrote an article about all the different scenarios, and we can refer people to it for the Flyers to get in with the tiebreakers and everything else. It's a few things have to go right. Detroit's got to split. Pittsburgh's got to split. The Flyers can take care of the Washington by taking care of Washington. Yeah. But this doesn't seem as outlandish or as far-fetched as you would think. I mean, Pittsburgh's a team that's been playing very well of late. Could they win the last two? Absolutely. Could Detroit end up with 3 points of a possible? Sure. But it doesn't seem as outlandish. I read what you wrote, and it doesn't seem as, impossible to have this work out, provided the Flyers can do their part and win the game tomorrow.
Exactly, yeah. Take care of your own business. Let the chips fall wherever they may. Like you look at Detroit's two games. Oh, well, they're playing a team that's out of the race. The Flyers could testify firsthand, as can many other teams. Hey, look, Pittsburgh last year could testify to that.
Yep.
It's
Chicago beat them.
Yeah, exactly. Chicago beat them, and the funny thing was they ended up with Connor Bedard out of it. What at the time it seemed like they had cost themselves the higher odds in the lottery. So, but a team that's playing with no pressure, guys playing for jobs, even teams playing a tune-up for a playoff game. Although to me, actually, sometimes the team that's already out is the more dangerous team.
Yeah. They just play so loose.
Yeah, and because teams that have already locked up a spot, they're resting guys. Players are really not going. There's the fear of injury before a playoff series.
Yeah. So
a lot of times those teams like Montreal can be the most dangerous opponents this time of year. With Pittsburgh, it's a split, right? Both teams, it's a split. You win one, with Pittsburgh, of course, now being a point behind the Flyers, a little different situation than Detroit. But listen, a split and the Flyers win, and then if Montreal could win one of those games in regulation, then or even win two in overtime, kind of thing. But it sometimes also too, Jason, it's hard. A home and home is not always
playing the same team twice is not a bargain. Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, the most typical result is a split, actually. Obviously not always, but the most common result of a home and home is a split. So, but the Flyers can't really worry about that. Just take care of Washington. They're not going to be able to necessarily control as to whether that be okay if that's in overtime or even in a last day shootout. But if you take care of it in regulation, it doesn't even matter what it's weird how the math works where you're tied with a team, They have 2 games left. You have 1, and one of those games doesn't even matter at all because
you play each other.
You play each other. As long as you win that one in regulation, doesn't really matter what happens. On Monday. That's a 3-4 for Washington. It's not the easiest scenario for a team because they have to go all out every game.
And they're on the back-to-back. Flyers will have not played since Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So it's there are all these factors you can point to. The bottom line just comes out as you play the right way. Try to be. I don't. I think none of our hearts can take another 1-0 game. Flyers need to finish some chances. You look at if you look at the Devils game, the Flyers. If they didn't win that game. Guys like Tippett and Forster had several, and Couturier had one too. Actually, Frost had one right before Tippett had the point blank rebound sitting on the doorstep.
Yeah,
you just kick yourself, but the chances were there. Is the point?
Yeah.
The one difference really between the Rangers game and the Devils game was the Flyers were a little more opportunistic offensively. They can sure use that against Washington.
Yeah, and off the rush as well. I think when they play off the rush, they just thin the other team out so much, and it makes all the difference in the world. We'll see what's going to play out come tomorrow night. What's going to play out tonight? Washington's in action tonight. May start to get some more indications on exactly what needs to happen and get some more clarity as we go through, maybe all the way until after the Flyers game is over. We still may not know because the Penguins play on Wednesday. So this is bananas. Bill, great stuff as always. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. And we will crank it up tomorrow. It'll be Flyers game 82 against the Washington Capitals. We'll preview it and much more. So join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.